Okay. Let's do this. So I've flown all of these FS Academy missions before, but that's almost like a run through, speed run through the content to say I've completed it, to try and understand as much of it as possible. But I wouldn't say that I have it down to a level of proficiency where I can just intuitively and instinctively remember the right procedure, the right approach, best practice when I'm flying on the routes I want to fly on VATSIM. So as I want to work towards getting that PPL license, the P1 PPLA on VATSIM, I want to come back and I'm going to go through these as many times as I need to until I've built up the muscle memory, but also mentally, that I can just dip into my memory banks and pull out what's needed when I'm flying in anger. So might get through more than just the one lesson here. So in the video there are the links to the FS Academy website where you can pick up all the mission packs, and also a link to the manual that I'm going to be running through, which you should be able to see bottom left on my Open eBoard, which is an app that I'm running. A link to that as well in the video description. And whilst in VR, to be able to manipulate the switches and buttons, I'll be using my point controllers. Link to that in the description as well. So then the next flight is the approach, re-entering the Liverpool control zone, or the aerodromes, is it the ATC, and then joining the circuit to land. So let's have a look. Going through all of my manuals and stuff in my new board. So yep, so this is to get a feel for how things will look when we're on the approach before we entering the Liverpool control zone for a return to landing. So we're going to begin away from the airfield, going to slow the aircraft, set power and attitude for the approach. We're going to re-enter the Liverpool control zone at Kirkby, and then we're going to route under air traffic control to the Jaguar car factory, which is a visual reference point, and it's located just to the north of the airport. So north of the airport, got to remember that. And then we're going to get an instruction from Approach ATC to complete an orbit, which is going to be a 360-degree turn, and that's to allow us to sequence into any other traffic on arrival. And then once we're on a parallel track to the runway, the down leg, we're going to continue until the landing runway threshold appears at our 45 degrees over our right shoulder. Then we're going to be asked to get used to the airfield environment. And then at the appropriate moment, we're going to turn right. So it's a right turn, right-hand pattern onto a heading to fly south, to fly the base leg. And we're going to be reducing power, lowering the nose to gradually descend. So a lot of stuff going on. And then once we're made the turn onto the final approach, and we're lined up on the runway centre line, going to extend flaps to 20 degrees, choose an aiming point, and we're going to try and fly a straight course all the way down to the last 50 feet before landing, before we'll do our flare. So let's take a look at the visual reference points. So that's what we're looking for the Jaguar car factory, which is north of the airport, a huge flat complex of buildings, and then the map as the visual reference point. So there's the, just mute for a second. Okay, and we're back. A bit of decorating going on in the house. We're obviously not actually at John Lennon Airport. So, yep, so there we have the airport, bottom of the diagram, Garston Docks to the left, and then the Jaguar car factory to the north of us, so Garston Docks is northwest. That's our aiming point for landing. Don't want to land on the extreme edge of the runway, that's not usable for landing. And then we're going to see if we can maintain a center line on rollout. So this is going to be our approach. Approaching from the north, right hand turn over the Aintree Racecourse. Then looking to spot the Jaguar factory on our nose to the south. We will then overfly the airport and enter the pattern right hand turn. That's after doing a 360 sequencing orbit. Can't rotate this to see it. You could probably do the same thing I'm doing. I'm looking down at the new board, bottom left. Runway layout. Okay, so let's leave that one up for now until we load the lesson.
Welcome back. We're to the northwest of Liverpool, this time to look at descending, approach and landing. We're flying straight and level in uncontrolled airspace at 100 knots. Maintain heading 090 and slow to 60 knots, keeping altitude 2,400 feet.
Well, okay, I forgot to do that before. Okay, I'm going to restart. The reason I'm going to do that is I always have to go full left, full right on my controllers, my pedals, after joining a flight. For some reason, Flight Simulator doesn't recognize them, and then it does that. Okay, so let's start again, and it just completely and utterly throws the aircraft out of controlled flight regime. I don't know why it does it. It just does.
Welcome back. We're to the northwest of Liverpool, this time to look at descending, approach and landing. We're flying straight and level in uncontrolled airspace at 100 knots. Maintain heading 090 and slow to 60 knots, keeping altitude 2,400 feet.
That's altitude and heading maintained.
Staying level at 2,400 feet, set flaps to 10 and see how the picture changes.
Flaps 10.
Maintaining 2,400 feet, see how the nose is lower as the flaps have made the wing more effective. Flaps add both lift and drag, so you need a little extra power to hold your speed. Now set flaps to 20 and see what changes. Hold your speed at 60 knots. Now accelerate to 80 knots. Now keep 80 knots and start a slow descent, only going down at about 400 feet per minute. Keep descending at 80 knots and 400 feet per minute. This is how we'll fly down the initial part of the approach. Now please maintain your rate of descent and extend full flaps. Target 80 knots. Now that we've got full flaps, we have more lift and drag. Set and maintain a speed of 60 knots.
Remembering pitch control speed, not throttle. Throttle controls lift and descent. So
good. Now holding 60 knots and a slow descent of 3 to 400 feet per minute. This is how we'd fly the end of the approach as we get close to landing. Get used to this attitude and power setting and keep descending further. So this is how things would look as we come in to land. But if things don't go well, we perform a go-around, where we apply full power and pitch up to start a climb. Make sure not to do this too aggressively, however.
Was I meant to do that? I think so, because we're down at 1,000
Let's
feet.
practice a go around.
Okay.
Set full power now and set the climb attitude. Use some right rudder to stay straight and keep climbing. Set flaps to 20. Set the flaps to 10.
Okay, there's Kirkby. Maintaining 090. .300 feet per minute climb. Just below 60 knots though.
Finally, retract the flaps completely. Good. Climb to 1,400 feet and get yourself straight and level at 100 knots.
We've already climbed above that.
Trim nose down to ease the control pressure as you stabilise at 100 knots with a straight and level attitude. Maintain 1,400 feet. Now we'll head back to Liverpool and try a zone entry, approach and landing. Liverpool Golf Foxtrot Sierra Alpha Charlie, request Vfr rejoin at Kirby.
Golf Alpha Charlie Liverpool radar, clear to enter controlled airspace at Kirby, not above 1,500 feet VFR. Squawk 5052, clearance limit, car factory.
Clear to enter, not above 1,500 feet VFR to car factory 5052, Golf Alpha Charlie. Turn right heading south. We're now looking to route to the car factory VRP, located just north of the airport. Target speed of 100.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to fly this one again. I think I was in the wrong flat configuration, so I've gone beyond the point in the lesson where I was meant to be.
Now continue south into the Liverpool control zone and you'll soon begin to see the factory as a large flat industrial building near to the airport. Visual reference points, VRPs, are local landmarks that give points of reference to VFR flights to easily communicate their positions. Chosen for their standout features, VRPs are shown on VFR maps. ATC assigned us a squawk code, which is entered into the transponder to label us on the ATC radar screen.
So yeah, so I was off profile, I was too high, and then because we followed the instructions for the speed
On our way
change
back,
and
let's talk about the aiming
descending led me
point.
too far.
Once
so I just
established
made
on the approach, we
too
pick a
many
spot on the runway and try to lock that point in the same place on our windscreen all the
cascade
way
errors.
down. It could be runway numbers, a touchdown marking, or
But we're
something
back now.
else. Continue on this heading of south and you should be able to see the car factory soon. Head south towards the car factory.
So the good thing about VFRs, they don't need to be bang on a airway. It's all about the visual reference points, but I was off speed, off altitude for about 60 seconds, if not 90 seconds or more, which again, what I want to avoid. We're now probably 20 feet, 30 feet high, maybe 10 knots, maybe 5 knots fast. We are fighting some wind, so some deviations to be expected, but still want to be tighter. So we're bang on altitude.
Golf Alpha Charlie, contact Liverpool Tower 126.355.
126.355 Golf Alpha Charlie. We'll report to ATC that we've reached our clearance limit at the car factory VRP. Golf Alpha Charlie, car factory.
Golf Alpha Charlie, make right orbit for traffic, call complete.
Right orbit Wilco, Golf Alpha Charlie. Start a 360 turn, known as an orbit, to the right as instructed by ATC.
Okay, so 20-degree bank, maintain some back pressure for altitude, maintain speed.
The landing attitude will be just like what we saw earlier, which we used to fly down towards our aiming point. As we cross the runway threshold, move your gaze to the far end of the runway, and then use peripheral vision to judge your height. Then we'll pull the power back and raise the nose to the flare attitude, which is just enough to reduce your rate of descent, and touch down on the main gear first. Then we'll smoothly allow the nose wheel to land and let your speed fall off with the power still at idle.
Holding speed, altitude within tolerance.
Golf Alpha Charlie, orbit complete.
Golf Alpha Charlie, enter right downwind, runway 27, number 1.
Right downwind, runway 27, Golf Alpha Charlie. Make a left turn here to fly heading 090, parallel to the runway. Descend down to 1,100 feet.
20-degree bank. Let the nose drop a little. Back on the power so we don't increase airspeed.
Keep flying parallel at 1,100 feet until the runway threshold appears at a 45-degree angle behind you, over your right shoulder. I'll let you know when to turn. Target speed of 100. Looking over your right shoulder, the threshold of the landing runway seems to be about 45 degrees behind us. Now's a good time to make our right-hand turn to start lining up with the runway. Start a gentle descent and start slowing to 80 knots. Once your speed is down to within the white arc, take flaps 10 and hold 80 knots. We're in the white arc now, so set flaps to 10. Hold the speed of 80 knots with a gradual descent. Now take flaps 20, speed still at 80 knots. We're looking for a speed of 80 knots on the base turn.
I'm all off. You have to fly this one again. I'm off everywhere.
Golf Alpha Charlie cleared to land, runway 27, wind 250 at 4 knots.
Cleared to land runway 27, Golf Alpha Charlie. Okay, we're cleared to land. Finally take flaps full and slow to 60 knots.
So, no, we're going to go around because we're going to do this one all over again because we're way off profile. It was way too close. So I'm just going to go around. You have to fly it again because the score's going to be horrid. But that's good because it means I get to fix it. Rather than rushing it and flying, and even worse, landing. So I'll go all the way to the end of the runway, we'll turn right, crosswind, we'll then come back down, downwind, fly the approach again. Better to do that than rush the landing. And then we'll see our score, see if we manage to maintain above a D, and then fly it again. Try and maintain all of those speed changes, altitude changes, heading changes. So woulda, coulda, shoulda called a missed approach, but we're letting Flight Sim Academy handle all comms. We'll just fly the aircraft, the AV8. Excuse me. Okay. Wait, so it's at our 5 o'clock. So here we are now, we're on profile, 80 knots. Descending right turn. Full flaps. down to 60 knots. Let's see that we're high on the pappy. Fix that once we intersect the glide slope. There we go. Go to idle power.
Power to idle and set the flare attitude.
And roll out.
Stay on the centre line as you decelerate, then vacate at the first exit on your right.
Okay, so I'm hoping that by going around and not rushing the landing, I might have mitigated some of the negative points.
Golf Alpha Charlie taxi via Alpha and link Kilo.
Alpha and Kilo, thank you, Golf Alpha Charlie. Now we're vacated, after landing checks, flaps up, transponder to standby. Well done, so we've looked at re-entering the control zone, entering the circuit and making an approach and landing. We'll move on to focusing on the circuit pattern.
Okay. Okay, so that I'm happy with that. So the approach and everything started to go a bit wrong from all the way back when we were doing the practice approach attitude, and when we were going from flaps to flaps 10, I pushed the controller on my yoke or my stick to reduce to flaps 10, but it didn't transmit. And that happens sometimes when the mouse controller is hovering over one of the game pop-up menu windows. My controller stopped transmitting inputs to the game. So that threw me off. So then we were further into the pattern or into the flight than the timestamps on the game or the trigger points on the game. So that meant that instead of flying a 180 south course to the Granada or to the Jaguar factory, we had to do like a 190 instead. So I was already off then, and that meant I was missing some of my altitude holds, airspeed holds, so not good. So I'd want to fly that again. So I already had in mind that I'd want to fly that again. But then, as you saw that as we were doing the circuit, I was struggling to get down to the 60 knots. So I need to fly that again anyway. But I was struggling to get down to the 60 knots in time with the descent in profile and making the turn. So that turn out of base was ugly as hell. But instead of forcing that and forcing the landing, I'd rather, what I should do is do the go around. Just go around, get back in front of the plane, get back in control. And I was hoping that by that being the right thing to do, rather than just throwing the plane down at the runway, that I could then come back around and execute the landing properly, as I did, and that the game would recognize that, and it has. I've got maximum points out of that one. I was expecting to get a D, maybe a C if I was lucky, and it said, okay, well, you screwed up a lot, but you fixed it. But younger Mark, not much younger Mark, weeks younger Mark, months maybe at the most younger Mark, would have probably tried to force that landing. Whereas I know that if I was in a lesson, or if I was in an exam, definitely, that it would be better. It would demonstrate better air. Well, I was going to say airmanship, but it would definitely display better aviation technique, skills, adherence to go, actually, no, this is wrong. Get back ahead of the plane, get back in control, and fly a configured, coordinated approach and landing. So to do that and come out with a score of 10,000, I will take that, and I'll take that for today's flying. So lesson 1, lesson 2. I might come back and do lesson 2 again. It depends, but I also might just go on to lesson 3 and then fix these things in lesson 3. And if by the time I get through lesson 3, 4, 5, 6, I don't feel as though I've fixed them enough, then I will come back and I'll do the VFR flight school again. So until then, thank you for hanging out. Thank you for watching this, and I will see you in the next one.